Good morning. Can you please introduce yourself and tell us a little bit more about your nonprofit origin story?
Hi, I am Shannon Cherry. I began my career way too long ago. Well, I was the youngest television anchor and reporter in the country back in the late 80s, early 90s. And what
Amazing.
I realized as I was doing these stories were the people with power and the people with money often got the news coverage, whereas the real stories, the ones that actually will make a difference, oftentimes didn't. So after a few years in news at an ABC affiliate, I moved over to nonprofit work, and I've spent 20 years doing marketing and fundraising for nonprofits to help them find their voice and be heard.
I love that. I love that. And what are you up to right now?
Now I am a fractional fundraiser and marketer, which means that I go into nonprofits pretty much as their development director. But because I'm so experienced, I don't need the ramp up time, and it's more affordable than hiring what I call a junior fundraiser, someone who they need a development person, but they're just starting out on their career, so they make a lot of mistakes. I come in, we build a plan, and then in 12 months, they can continue to work with me or take this plan and move it forward with someone less experienced.
I love that. I love the fractional movement. I think it's fantastic. So, favorite part of this work? What do you love about the nonprofit sector, your work as a marketer, organizations that you've worked with to date?
Yeah, I think the thing is that my values are based in justice and equity. I mean, I didn't realize it till much later in my life. I have two daughters with autism. They're 18 years old now, but almost 19. And they often are some of the reasons I do this because I see the injustices in the world. And I had that back when I was a reporter, but now it's hit home a lot farther. So what I like doing is seeing that passion that a nonprofit has, the idea of making the world a better place for everyone, not just it might be one target market or one specific group, but really it's about that. And I do that in a variety of ways, but I always have that lens on of how we can make things better for everyone, because it's the curb cut effect. I don't know if you've ever heard of that, but if you know that you've built something for people with disabilities, like the curb cuts for wheelchairs that you see at the end of curbs, it also helps everybody else because it helps people with a lot of packages. It helps moms with strollers. It helps senior citizens who may need help walking across the street, and taking that dip could be difficult. So I look for those things, and it's always fun to see those in those nonprofits because most of them have it.
I love that. And, for me, some of what I think nonprofit doesn't do all that well is educating about what nonprofit is out in the world and what it does. But, when all of a sudden we need the services, because I think the average person who maybe doesn't work in nonprofit or has very little exposure, maybe doesn't have a kid who needs supports. You and I have connected on this before. I have one kiddo with, a variety of ADHD, motor sensory, things like that. It wasn't evident until I was out there trying to find him the help he needs. You know, my partner and I are well educated. We had the funding to go around and circumvent the system because the system was not ever designed for him. And we've paid for many things out of pocket. But I so frequently look and go, yeah, but what about people who are not in the position that we're in? And when you need the curb, like you were talking about, do you ever need it right then, right? It's not until you notice that you need it that sometimes we become aware of some of these inequities that you're talking about. But nonprofits are making it possible for everyone that when it's your turn that you needed that potential curb, whether it's, when you're in your 20s that you maybe need supports with a wheelchair ramp, or what if it's not until your 80s? It shouldn't matter. It's there for you to use, and it's there for anyone who needs it. And I think that's a really powerful example that you're sharing, and I love that. I don't know if I'd heard it framed that way, but it totally resonates.
I mean, there's a lot of examples of this in real world that we use just as neurotypical people or Siri, for one, if you have an iPhone. Surrey was actually invented by someone who wanted to help people with disabilities and wanted them to be able to have something that they could communicate with in case they, especially communication disabilities, so they could
Yeah.
talk if they were blind. They didn't have to do that. But so many of us now use Surrey or something like Surrey to get stuff done. So it's amazing how things always end up, if they're built for somebody, even in the nonprofit world, they're built to help somebody no matter what. It ends up helping all of us.
Great example. And I always like to start off with the favorites because then I move into the challenges of this work. And, it can be at an organizational level challenge. It can be as someone who's worked for a very long time in the sector. What do you think are some of the greatest challenges facing nonprofits and nonprofiteers?
Yeah, I've been thinking about this a lot lately, but really it comes down to one word, and it's capacity. It's not capacity building, it's capacity. The
Hmm.
problem is, um, we can't keep people in jobs in the nonprofit sector. They don't pay enough. The problem is we more people want services than ever. It's increased by like 70% in the past since COVID. More people need help. It's and then we have boards who don't understand their role and what they're required to do and where they're overreaching. And then we have funders who think that not paying for operational cost is good. So it's really about capacity and educating everyone about the problems our sector is facing, and understanding where we can make some differences and make real change, because we're
Yeah.
not going to be able to complete our missions in the nonprofit world, missions, or even solve a problem if we have all these hiccups along the way. I mean, who can do work, who can help people if you can't hire staff because they're making more money at McDonald's than they are at the nonprofit.
I don't know if you're part of Nonprofit Happy Hour on Facebook, which is such an
Mhm.
interesting and wild group to be a part of. But, there was people there going, I'm accessing the same services my own nonprofit offers for my family because I'm not getting paid enough to not, right? Like there's something, I don't know if you read one of our members, Michelle, just wrote about incongruence in nonprofit work and you know, this mismatch of how we work internally and how things are run within teams, and like that unfairness, that the deep sense of like something moral, like there's an moral injustice feeling starting to rise, I think. And we've kept a lid on it through this like martyrdom complex of nonprofit work for so long. But I don't think you know it's hard to watch the inequities of the rich getting richer and all of that and going, but this doesn't make sense. But we're subsidizing everything out there in nonprofit that used to be government run. And we accepted that, but I don't think the acceptance is there anymore among staff, or it's really changing.
I think as um, society is changing, baby boomers are retiring, and it's called the silver tsunami. They're all going to be going away soon. They're retiring, they're getting out of it. Baby boomers were taught how to that they were dedicated and they stuck with it no matter what. Now I'm sort of in the middle. I'm a Gen Xer, but the other people down, millennials and Zs, they want to save the world, but they want to do it in their own way, and they want to do it in a way that is meaningful to them,
Yeah.
not just what somebody says is the job. So,
Yeah.
and I think that's fair. And I'm glad that we've educated these other generations on what they should be asking for.
Yeah, I agree. I technically fall in this like elder millennial, like there's like a term for like the 4 years around my age range. And I do see the millennials significantly younger than me. And I'm like, we're a completely different breed. We're a completely different breed because I absolutely, with friends among my own age, still have a lot of that like No, you work and you work and you work, and the boundaries are very low. And but I'm excited that there are people who the boundaries conversation is just and it's not something they're going to gloss over. And I'm learning from a lot of how they are working things and learning different ways to express your passion, right? And it doesn't have to look the same as it always did. And yeah, I feel like the future of nonprofit is really exciting. And I understand that it's also overwhelming and that systems changes it's a big deal. And I don't think the sector, you said capacity earlier, the capacity in the sector for change is not great, right? So
I think if you have you look at our governments, and if our governments take forever to change like silly rules and silly thing, like we have laws on the books in the United States about slavery still,
yeah,
that you can still own slaves or indentured servants. And that actually, even in liberal California, we have one about prisoners, people who are in prison, that they can be in service to others,
yeah,
and not get paid for it. Like they're fighting fires in LA right now,
yeah,
those kind of things. So, and they don't get paid for it. So there's a lot, if they can't change, it's a lot harder for the people getting their money, a lot of government money, to change.
yeah. So, gonna shift it a little bit into peer support. You've been in this industry for a long time. What is peer support and engaging with others who are in nonprofit work as well? What has it meant to you?
Yeah. So it's interesting. We jumped on this thing about Gen X. Gen X was raised to be completely fiercely independent. That's the one thing I can tell you, is that we learned very early that, our parents are at work all day. We got home from school and we could watch MTV, do whatever the heck we wanted when there was an MTV. We could
Yeah,
do whatever the heck we wanted, and get and even get dinner on the table for the entire family. And I was
yeah,
doing that when I was like sixth grade,
yeah,
fifth grade, sixth grade, seventh grade. That was my responsibilities when I came home. But I also had the freedom of, I could go out all the time and no one asked where I was. No one cared, because that was
yeah,
that that's how we were raised. So we were fiercely independent. For me, I had that for a long time, where I tended to silo in. I was not a big collaborator. Since I started this business and since I found the Hive, it's really honestly been a game changer for me. I have met so many amazing peers and amazing people. Every person I talk to on the Hive, no matter if they're a nonprofit leader, no matter if they're thinking about going into nonprofit work, no matter if they are a consultant or they do something else, every single one of them has something to give. And I get so many ideas just by having it. I like the Hive chat is on my calendar no matter what. There's only a couple times I take it off when I'm away, but other than that, it's my thing and I love it. And so many great things have happened because of building this peer network. We comment on each other's LinkedIn posts, which actually helps the algorithm for us. So
absolutely.
those kind of things, we didn't ask for it. People are doing it because what I am finding is the more we work together, the better we make change.
I couldn't agree more. And it's really special. I mean, I can't even remember now how you ended up finding us, what the like you'll have to tell me, like what how you found the Hive, but you jumped right in with both feet, which I love. And we have our quiet lurkers. I mean, you know, it's a community of 1,600 people, but I would say more like 200, 250 kind of fall into that power user kind of category. Some people have taken 65 conversations since October 2023. It's crazy, right? Like that's an insane number. But there's also lots that are just kind of quietly or tiptoe in or, take a chat and then come back in 2 months. But you were like right in right from the beginning, which I deeply appreciated.
Well, I love it. I'm very lucky that someone referred me to you. That I had just, she wanted to know what I was doing. She was starting out her freelance career and wanted to know how I was doing what I was doing. So I just, okay, I'll talk to you. I got time. And she told me about the Hive chats.
Amazing.
And I was like, I've never heard of this. Is it like Lunch Club? Is it like the,
Yeah.
those kind of, and she's like, No, it's better. So there you go. And once I did it, it did one. I was like, this is game changing.
Yeah. Hey, I truly believe, the peer support piece and talking to others who've been in the industry, whether you're brand new, which we have lots of people who are quite new to the field or looking to go into the field. It's been super interesting to see these people who are brand new to nonprofit as well. But they also bring a different training, a different mindset. They ask some really deep and probing questions of some of our members who have been in nonprofit like yourself for 20 years, that they're probably the questions we all should be we should be asking ourselves these questions, right? And they're the ones who are going to be taking up the mantle of nonprofit over the next, time frame. And so we do have to answer some of those questions. So I love the combination of playing around with all the different people who come to the hive.
Yeah, I do too. I do
Nice,
too.
for
You
sure.
never know who you're going to meet, and every single story is different. I mean, I've met one person on a Hive chat, Mike Lee, and what he does actually helps my daughter. And it was an amazing thing because we were trying to find dental care for people with autism is really difficult for some because it's a very, as we all know, we all love the dentist and it's a very sensory thing. And but it's even harder sometimes for people with autism. So he has a foundation that helps with that. And we were desperately looking for a new dentist for her because she turned 18 and the pediatric dentists are like, we really can't work with her anymore.
Yeah,
And immediately I put out a call to him and he found someone like that and introduced us and they got her in days. It was
that's amazing.
amazing. And
That's awesome.
now he's also working with my husband on a course to help dentists. My husband also works in nonprofit work and he is on the Hive as well. They're building a course for dentists and dental personnel to understand autism better and people with communication disabilities.
I love it. Hey, sometimes there's just a little bit of serendipity there,
Yeah.
right? It's so
And I think
cool.
he was like my first or second chat.
This is so fantastic. So, appreciate all that you've done as a Hive member. And how can people get in touch with you to learn more about your fractional fundraising services and marketing services?
Yeah. Well, my website is mynonprofitadvisor.com. There's a whole bunch of free resources there you can grab. And they're pretty easy. You can also reach me via email, hello at mynonprofitadvisor.com.
Amazing. That's fantastic. Thank you so much for doing this with me, Shannon.
It's always
Just,
a pleasure. I
oh,
love the Hive. I couldn't be the person I am today without it.
oh, you're wonderful. Thank you so much.